Whether you are launching something brand new or you are launching something big or launching updates to your product, product launches can be a huge source of stress and chaos, anticipation, excitement, joy, fear, pain, and a combination of a whole host of other things. When you go through a product launch, there are a list of key steps that you need to go through. And we'll go through each of them in this module today. So the first one is actually talking to your customers and doing the research. So what do you need to know about these people before you launch your product? And once you've done that, then you create your positioning and the messaging. So based on the conversations that you've had, what you understand about your customer, how are you going to position your product in the market, and what messaging will you use to appeal to your target customers? Then you share that positioning and messaging with key teams and stakeholders, so they are all on board, they understand what it is, and they have any questions that they have answered. You then move into creating a list of possible launch activities. So what will you actually do to launch the product, and what are all the potential ways that you can launch it? You then create all of your launch assets and the product content to make sure that you have everything ready to go. Then you will get the whole team prepared, get them on the same page, and then you launch that. You launch your product. When you look at understanding your customer, it's very rare that you have a successful launch that doesn't have customer research to back it up. Neil Patel, who is the co-founder of Crazy Egg, Hello Bar, and Kissmetrics, says that the sooner you learn about your customers, the faster you'll be able to pivot and serve them better. Some call it customer research, some call it customer development, but in a sense, no matter what you actually label it, it's essentially doing the same thing. The idea of you get out there and you start talking to your customers and building a relationship with them. So you get to understand them, to get them to answer the questions that you have in your head about whether your product is going to hit that particular market well. So when you go out and do your customer research, you'll hear a lot of things like, I wish it, or how come it doesn't do this? But as a marketer, your job is to filter out all that noise, all the questions around functionality, all of the wishful thinking, all of the can't you do this differently, and only listen to one thing, and that is their pain. You have to understand what they actually feel pain from, how bad it is, and what they want to do to fix it, or how far they'll go to fix it. So as a marketer, as a market researcher, you have to push yourself to go deeper, ask better questions that actually get you the better answers. One of the best frameworks you can use to discover pain is use the pain funnel by David Sandler. This process that was developed by David Sandler pushes you to go deeper and uncover the underlying reasons for your customer's pain versus what is just stopping at the surface. So you might ask somebody, what is the most challenging thing about X? And they'll talk about it for as long as they want. And that is you just looking at the surface level of their pain. What you have to do is actually go deeper, ask more questions. And this is why David Sandler's pain funnel is very, very relevant. So let's have a look at what the pain funnel actually is. So there are many questions that you can ask that will go deeper into what pain the customer is feeling and why. So when they first tell you what pain you're feeling, you will ask, tell me more about that. And you listen to what they say. And then when they've explained something, you'll say, can you be a bit more specific? Give me an example of when you've experienced that. How long has that problem been hanging around? How long has it been a problem for you? What have you tried to do about it? And did that work? How much do you think it will cost you? How do you feel about that? Have you given up trying to deal with the problem? So in this funnel, let's just talk through why these questions are relevant. So when they first give you an answer and you say, tell me more about that, you're actually getting them to think about in detail, like what else is going on? And typically the customers don't know how to tell you what else is going on. So then you say, can you be a bit more specific? Give me an example. Because at this point, they'll just be talking in theory. Oh, this is a pain for me because of that. When you get them to tell a story, they actually you're invited into their world and you're seeing things from their perspective. And then you go into how long has that been a problem? So has it been actually hanging around for a while? And then you move into what have you tried to do about it? So this is when you start researching what other solutions are there out there, or what other things is the customer trying, and are they working or not? And then you obviously ask, and did that work? And they'll say, yes, it did because of this, or no, it didn't because of that. And when they say it didn't work, then you will say, how much do you think that will have cost you? And it's not just in terms of money, it's in terms of time, energy, emotions, that kind of thing. So what cost has it been for you to try a solution that didn't work? And then you say, well, how do you feel about that? And here you're looking for the pain point. Do they feel good or bad? Do they feel okay? Are they bothered or not? And then have you given up trying to deal with the problem? And this tells you whether the pain is real, because if the pain is very real, the customer will continue trying to fix the problem. And then you know that you have a solution on your hands that somebody will pay for. So that is David Sandler's pain funnel. When you're doing research, what you don't want to do is talk about absolutely everything that the customer is feeling. You have to look at a very specific pain and only that pain. The customer may start talking about other things, but your job as a marketer is to ask the questions that keeps the customer focused on exactly the pain that your product will deal with. And interestingly enough, between 12 to 15 one-on-one customer interviews will probably reveal 80% of the possible pain points for your entire segment. So what this means is when you're doing your customer research, listen to patterns of what customers are saying. Are they all feeling the same kind of pain? Are they all telling you the same kind of stories? Are they all trying the same kind of solutions? Are they all feeling terrible that these solutions aren't working? Look for the patterns. And once you can predict what your customers will say, that's when you know that you know your customers really well. So you don't have to conduct hundreds of interviews to get to this point. So that was how to understand your customers and research them. Let's now look at positioning and messaging. So once you've got your customer development or customer research, you have to turn it into something very actionable. And there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of ways to write a positioning statement. But when you write the statement itself, it has to focus on answering three key questions about your product. The first is, who is your product for? So who's your market segment? The second question is, what does your product do? And the third question is, why is it different? So who is it for? What does it do? And why is it different? Your positioning statement has to answer these three questions. So let's have a look at an example. So the target audience will be the investors, okay? The problem statement is they are concerned about competition and commoditization in online retail. So your investors are concerned about that. The category is, I'm a visionary CEO of an online retailer whose unique brand is built on a happy corporate culture and great customer service. The value proposition is that it achieves consistent growth and profitability with empowered employees that delight our customers. And the differentiation is, unlike our competitors, we have the highest employee satisfaction and brand loyalty ratings. So who is it for? It's for the investors. What does it do? Okay, it achieves consistent growth and profitability with empowered employees and who delight our customers. And how is it different to the market? Well, unlike our competitors, they have high employee satisfaction and brand loyalty ratings, which means investors will know exactly what they're investing in and why it's different to other competitors on the market. When you look at the power of branding, within your target segment, your branding provides your category with distinction because of proof. Okay, so for example, BMW is a luxury car brand. Okay, there are many luxury cars in the market, but the BMW is for drivers who value auto performance. BMW provides luxury vehicles that deliver joy through German engineering. Okay, so what are they saying there? They're saying we are a brand, we're a luxury brand. We appeal to people who who actually value auto performance, and we are fantastic because we deliver it through German engineering. Okay, so the target market. So this is the positioning. Target market is people that value auto performance. So what does it do? They provide luxury vehicles. Okay, and why they're different? Because they could do that through German engineering. Let's look at Coca-Cola, very well recognized brand in the soft drinks market, and it's a very, very saturated market. But Coca-Cola is for people around the world. It's a soft drink that has been the real thing since 1886. So who is it for? It's for people around the world. It's for everyone. What does it do? It's a soft drink. And why is it different? Because it's been around since 1886. So they are very proud of their heritage. That's two different ways that brand positioning can be used. Okay, so let's now look at once you have the positioning, you have to teach it out. So you have to tell everyone in your company exactly what your positioning is. And actually, this step is hugely underrated. Why is it underrated? Because when the marketers and the developers of the product understand it, the assumption is that everybody else in the company will understand it too, when in fact, this isn't quite the case. So your positioning will never stick unless everyone in your company is on the same page. If you can't get employees to buy into it, how will you actually get customers to buy into it? So in this stage, you spend the time getting your key stakeholders on board. There are people internally that are invested and excited about your launch. And the more people that you have that are on that particular group, the more resources you'll have to succeed. But you have to be careful that you have to manage everybody who's involved and make sure that you build time in your plan to get their feedback. So you have to have time in your launch plan to actually engage with these people, get their feedback before you move on to the next stage. And the next stage is creating your launch plan. So when you create your launch plan, you have to start with your goal and then move backwards from there. So if your goal is to get 100 new customers, what do you have to do to actually get there? What steps do you take? What's the timeline? Who needs to be involved? What resources will it take? If your goal is to cross-sell to 3,000 existing customers, what do you need to do to get there? So once you have a clear single goal, you have to make a list of every single marketing activity you can think of and don't take anything off the table. So when you start with your end goal will be by this date, we want to be doing X. Okay, so we'll know we'll achieve it because the achievement is measurable. So you have to make your goal smart, and measurable. So once you have that, you have a date, you have a number, you then work backwards from there. So how many people do we need on board? What activities do we need to do? What money will it take? Where will we need to be? What other resources do we need? What partners do we need? You have to make sure that you have all parts of that plan understood. And then when it comes to looking at marketing activity, this is the stage where you're brainstorming the marketing activity. So you're not saying this is the way we'll market and that's it. You're going to be looking at all your options. Nothing is a stupid idea. And this is where you get really creative with your marketing and you come up with some really smart, cool ideas. Don't just think of things like, oh, we'll write a blog post or we'll send an email. Those are things that are very, very obvious. Think of things like using SumoMe to do a homepage takeover and capture an email address. So this is where you get a piece of software, well, the SumoMe software, you attach it to your website, and when somebody comes to your website, it actually looks like a landing page, and the entire purpose of that is to capture an email address. So that's where you're building your email list. You might want to post on sites like Reddit and inbound.org, so you start to get the message out there into the market, you start to interact with potential customers. And maybe you want to give your VIP customers or partners early access to your product as long as they actually make some noise about it and they start sharing it on social media, blogging about your launch, that kind of thing. So you need to get creative, especially in the digital world. You can start getting creative with how you advertise, who you advertise with, whether you'll be doing webinars, whether you'll be interviewing subject matter experts, whether you'll be actually interviewing your early adopters, getting your early adopters to review your product and post about it on social media. So once you have your list of ideas, and this is an exhaustive list of anything you could potentially do, go through it again and pick 2 to 3 activities for each channel. So you don't have to do them all, but you won't know how many activities are available unless you make an effort to think through each one. So when you look at partners in that channel, what 2 or 3 key activities can you do with partners? When you look at your website, what 2 or 3 key activities can you do? When you look at social media, what 2 or 3 activities can you do, etc., etc. In 2011, in the Harvard Business Review, an article was released called Why Most Product Launches Fail. And one of the key elements is that it's a lack of preparation. Companies are so focused on designing and manufacturing new products that they postpone the hard work of getting ready to market them until it's too late in the game. So when companies are designing and manufacturing their new products, they're effectively in a comfort zone, right? The comfort zone is we want to create the best product possible. But if you don't make enough time to market it, that product isn't going to be understood by your customers and it isn't going to be bought by your customers. So that means that getting your marketing ready is as important as getting your product ready. And you have to make enough time and give enough focus to marketing as you do to the product itself. So now you've planned the launch, it's time to create your launch content. So you've got your priorities of your launch done, and you have to start creating all of the content-based assets that you'll need to make that launch a success. So this should be anything from demo decks, product screenshots, sales materials, landing pages, website updates, social media updates, all your images, your blog post content, your inbound and outbound marketing activities. If you need creative or web design resources to help you with these assets, make sure that all of those deadlines are factored into your launch plan, and it's your responsibility to keep them on track and ready for launch. So if you are outsourcing the creation of your design, if you are outsourcing the writing of your content, all of that has to be built into your launch plan, and deadlines have to be set, and all the parties have to be brought on board, including what you need, how to brief them, when to edit, and when the final piece of marketing will be ready. So then it's time to prepare your team. And often your internal communication about the product and the marketing and the launch plan is as important as the external communication. So before you launch, you have to make sure that all the key stakeholders are prepared and they are ready to go. When you are doing this, using digital communication channels is incredibly useful. So you can use email, Slack, and Wiki to reinforce the message. But if you're getting ready for a large launch, do not get to hide behind technology. Get in front of a room or hold individual meetings and make sure that everyone is on the same page and send them all the relevant links after. So if it's a large launch, you might want to get the entire team together where you brief them on what the launch is about. And then you want to be briefing the individuals and make sure they understand exactly what they have to do. And this time is incredibly important and it's time well spent, because who is talking about your product in the launch internally in your team has to talk about it in the right way, in a way that you've intended, is in line with all the messaging that you've actually put together. Then it's time to launch. Whether you are an early stage startup or have an entire army of marketeers at your disposal, using a checklist that I'm about to share with you can really help you launch your product with an absolute bang. Just remember what Mike Tyson very famously said: everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. So that means that you have to be ready to adjust as you go along. So your plan sounds great, feels great, you feel like you can implement it, but anything can go wrong. And what you have to do within yourself and within your team is be prepared for anything to go wrong. What if your website goes down? What if you are at a high traffic moment and your website goes down? What do you do? Who is on board to bring your website back up? What if you are launching in a physical location, you are outdoors and it's raining that day? You have to find a way of mitigating that risk. So one thing you will need to do in your plan, of course, is to assess all the potential risks and what you'll do to mitigate them, to avoid them completely, or to handle them if they were to happen, if they're quite likely to happen. So that is the timeline and the steps that you need to take to a product launch. But there are just some products that no matter how much research you do, no matter how much effort you put into marketing them, they're just plain creepy silly, or absolutely terrible. So we're going to go through a few of them that came out in 2016. Prepare yourself. A Mac Soy Sandal. Okay, it's a Mac Soy Candle. Okay. There was some research done that said the smell of a new Mac laptop actually has overtaken the smell of a new book. And the accessory maker of Apple called 12 South made a candle that costs $24 that reminds you what it's like to open that white box of your new laptop every single day. And the candle lasts between 45 to 55 hours. Interesting idea. The candle that smells like a new Mac failed because nobody cares. The smell of a new Mac is not actually anything compared to the actual new Mac that you buy and open the box for. Terrible idea. A Candy Crush scented iPhone case. A $10 case was debuted at the Consumer Electronics Show, and it came in 9 scents and colors, including grape, blueberry, licorice, and vanilla. And it was not very well received at all. It turns out people don't want their phones smelling like candy. They may really love playing Candy Crush, but they don't want to feel like they are holding candy in their hands all the time and their phone's smelling of it. Terrible idea. The Tararella. This is a $49 umbrella. And it basically caters to the market that regrets losing their umbrella. But this umbrella actually has a light fixed at the top, which means that you can actually see where your umbrella is. But actually, it wasn't adopted by anyone because it was a rubbish idea. Nobody wants to walk around with a light on their umbrella, and absolutely nobody is going to actually care that much that the umbrella has been lost. So this is an example. Like, all joking aside, this is an example of when the product creator thinks they're solving a need in the market. Okay, and maybe they've done some market research that suggests that people who regret losing their umbrella really hate it, and they think, what a great idea to have a light on my umbrella. But this is also an example of where David Sandler's pain funnel has not been used. Because if you delve deeper into the problem and you ask the customer, what have you done about this in the past? They might say, well, I've kind of tried to think about where my umbrella is and I haven't found it. And you actually then, say, what else could you have done? Did that work? How did you feel? And when it comes to how did you feel, they likely would say, I know I would say this, I just went out and bought another umbrella. I felt terrible for a while, but I just went out and bought another umbrella. And so if they had used David Sandler's pain funnel questions, they would have realized that this idea was terrible because people don't care that much about losing the umbrella to do something about it. So the pain isn't as great as it needs to be in order to invest in a product like this. The Octo Smart Ring allows you to have a phone conversation with your hand cupped over your ear. Okay, the price wasn't listed. The website says it feels natural for all-day use, but actually, does that really feel natural? It was trying to solve a need or find a solution to a need that simply didn't exist. The Frank Green Smart Cup. So we might be moving away from paying with credit cards, but the future of digital payments is probably not in a chip-equipped cup. This smart cup has an Australian dollar price of $30, but actually nobody's really using it. The smartphone camera hat. This baseball cap is equipped to hold most smartphones on its brim, but the website says that we all need at least 2 cameras, one for photos and one for videos. This cap costs you $42, and it's just a low-tech version of Snap Spectacles, the GoPro helmet, or even just a selfie stick reversed. I think it turns out that most people are more concerned about looking ridiculous than they are about taking videos from 2 angles. The armpit cooler fan. Okay. This 1 ounce fan runs on AAA batteries and lasts up to 9 hours, or until somebody realizes you have a very tiny fan inside your shirt. It is made by a Japanese company, Fanco, and costs $60. And the idea is that it keeps your armpits cool in the summer. Yes, I'm sure many people feel embarrassed by sweaty pits and sweat stains on their shirts, but not enough to actually keep a fan inside their shirt, like clipped on their sleeve. Nobody really cares about that. The Smodogo bag, a Chicago-based company, raised more than $400,000 for what they call the first rideable piece of luggage. It costs over $1,000 and it can hold a rider that weighs up to 260 pounds and travels up to 6 miles at 8 miles an hour. It turns out people generally don't find it that much of a pain to pull their suitcases along behind them enough to pay for a bag they can ride on. Maybe great for kids, not so great for adults. The poolside accessory that was raging for a while were these mermaids' tails. Okay, this was an accessory that you wear beachside, poolside, and the problem was that they looked great until people tried to swim in them. So the mermaid's tail actually binds a swimmer's legs together, and it makes it difficult to kick. And there were lots of YouTube videos that actually showed children finding it very difficult to stay afloat, and it terrified parents, and the product just ended up dying. So it looks pretty, maybe fills a few fantasies of people, but actually isn't very efficient unless you actually know how to swim like a mermaid.